Firing up HAARP, normalizing cannibalism, and reading 3 letters. Plus This Day in History with Iwo Jima and our Song of the Day by Jens Lekman on your Morning Monarchy for February 23rd, 2017. I'm James Evan Pilato of MediaMonarchy.com. Welcome to whenever, wherever you are, for media brought to you by you. We've been online since 9/11/05, and you never heard an ad. You've never seen an ad. Totally crowdfunded. Totally crowdsourced. We are brought to you by you. MediaMonarchy.com/support has the PayPal, Patreon, the Bitcoin, the post office box. If you can give a little, I can give a lot. Like in the form of 10 live hours of broadcasting every week. Hour news in the morning, hour music in the afternoon. Each day we kind of focus in on a different territory. Monday's world news, Tuesday's tech, Wednesday's food. Friday is the entertainment industrial complex, but right here, right now, that's right, strap in. It's your Holy Hexes edition. This is where we go over your occult, crazy, conspiratorial, chaotic nonsense. I'm glad you're here. It's deceptively sunny here today for the dark topics we're going to talk about on this Thursday. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're safe and warm and sound wherever, whenever you are. If you're in a cube, in a car, in a garden, whatever you're doing, we are glad you're here. I appreciate you spending mind time with us. It is sort of it can be a personal thing. I mean, that's why I love radio. That's why it'll never go away. Had a buddy telling me about crazy shortwave and AM they were listening to the other day. They heard Per Ubu on some AM station here. That's why it's in the horror movies. That's why it's always a central plot point in horror movies. Well, it looks like the kids will probably not stray too far from the radio station. It represents a type of normalcy. And it also lets you communicate when everything else is falling apart or completely co-opted. I can't wait to get into building shortwave, low power FM, and all that stuff. Some of that might have to wait till we relocate the Media Monarchy command bunker. Be slowly moving east, probably. Again, I'm coming to you from the very sunny Pacific Northwest. Who knew? It is Thursday morning, February 23rd, 2017. Had a great time last night hanging out with the Sydney band called Middle Kids. They played a club I didn't know existed, which is pretty much like on my jogging route. So I missed them when they played a little afternoon show, actually. 2 years ago, I would have interviewed them in the Skype Live studio here in Portland back at the commercial radio job. That was my favorite part of the job. I did commercial radio in the morning, but at noon, I got to go downstairs and interview traveling indie bands. We've got a playlist of that up on our YouTube channel. You can check out some of those interviews I did through 2014 and 15. So huge thanks to them. Super cool. Got to hang out, chew their ear off, as you would expect me to do. And I even recorded a little bit. So their song Edge of Town was on our Best of 2016. You heard me play it multiple times. I recorded a version of it. I'll see if it turned out all right. We might play it on Pump Up the Volume. If that one doesn't work, we'll still play their awesome song Edge of Town. I'm planning tomorrow to just do it like we normally do. Do our normal shows. Yes, as you may have heard, my wife's been out of town for 2 weeks today. We're pretty much cracking the 2-week mark right now as we speak. Just after 9 a.m. Pacific time. Coming to you from the Media Monarchy studios at MediaMonarchy.com/listen. My plan is to do it regular tomorrow so we can knock out our regular Friday shows. Then that gives me the rest of the week off. Cassie's not going to work tomorrow. I can bust out these shows and be done probably before she even stops sleeping in and getting some rest. Then, however, I might take Monday, Tuesday off because we got a lot of things to catch up on here at the house. So that's my plan. So my idea is we're going to be on the air normal tomorrow for a Media Memes edition. However, today is a Holy Hexes edition. Our shows are generally not safe for work. These are for open-minded adults. I like to swear sometimes. And your Thursday editions are always predictably strange. So let's dispense with all the rest of the formalities and look at some of the breaking lamestream headlines before we dive right in. I guess, of course, the top thing, I haven't had a chance to look at any of it. I guess they just published it 2 hours ago. Hashtag CNN leaks. Looking forward to 2 or 3.5 chuckles from the latest, greatest MSM fail. More troops may be sent into Syria to fight ISIS. Just wrap your head around that. I mean, Israel the other day just flew over Al-Qaeda and ISIS to go bomb the Syrian army. Protests in Anaheim after off-duty cop fires gun during clash with teens. And actually, we've just had our first officer shooting here in Portland in a long time. Killed a 17-year-old black kid. So things, again, predictably heating up here in peak Portland. Rexon Tillerson arrives in Mexico, facing twin threats to relations. Am I the only one calling him Rexon? Come on, you guys. Trump's reversal on transgender bathroom directive. Again, identity politics, tearing everybody apart. Let's not all stand up and knock the powers that shouldn't be off our backs from playing a little strategio on our back. Risk. No, let's all fight with each other, because I don't want to work with you because you're not vegan. Let's begin with just one of the biggies of conspiracy lore. I mean, who would think a giant 40-acre antenna array might maybe do something to your brains? News comes to us this week that the famous HAARP, H-A-A-R-P, High Altitude Auroral Research Project, to be brought back into service for experiments by the University of Alaska. Built in the 1990s for the U.S. Air Force's High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, the array is a 40-acre site containing a phased array of 180 high-frequency antennas and their associated high-power transmitters. Its purpose is to conduct research on charged particles in the upper atmosphere, but that hasn't stopped an array of bizarre conspiracy theories by, the former governor. Was he a governor? Was Begich a governor or was he a senator? Nick Begich's dad, dead. Nick Begich's brother, dead. Nick Begich still talks about HAARP, I believe. The Air Force gave up the site to the university a few years ago, and it's their work that is about to recommence. They'll be looking at the effects of charged particles on satellite-to-ground communications, as well as over-the-horizon communications and visible observations of the resulting air glow. That's one word, air glow. If you live in Alaska, you may be able to see the experiments in your skies, but residents elsewhere should be able to follow them with an HF radio. It's even reported that they are seeking reports from shortwave listeners. Frequencies and times will be announced on a Twitter account at UAFGI. Perhaps canny radio amateurs will join the fun. After all, it's not often that the exact time and place of an aurora is known in advance. Hackaday.com is where we grab this report. And again, everything we say and play always included in the show notes. Hey, I haven't seen the New World Next Week episode. Speaking of everything we say and play. Episode 299 of New World Next Week is probably moments away from being published. Tinfoil hat wearers will no doubt have many entertaining things to say about this event, but for the rest of us, it's an opportunity for a grandstand seat on some cutting-edge atmospheric research. So the 40-acre HAARP rides again, and they want you to listen. I guess this would be where I would insert the thing about, of course, Silver Shamrock. So what's the latest big announcement from Never a Straight Answer? Oh, if you're my age, you also know that as need another 7 astronauts. It's new planets and Trappists.
The big news is that around a very nearby cold small star, we found 7 rocky Earth-sized planets, all of which could potentially have liquid water.
That's my favorite kind of water. 3 of them orbit in a habitable zone around the star.
For me, it's mind-blowing. The first time I saw what the system had in it, I just was like, you gotta be kidding me. And then I looked at the data myself, I'm like, yeah, there they all are. It's just, I would have never predicted this. It's beyond, anything I could have ever dreamt of.
The planetary system is called TRAPPIST-1 after the Belgian-operated telescope in Chile. TRAPPIST, with 2 Ps, found 2 planets in 2016. NASA's Spitzer Space Telescope, with the help of ground-based telescopes, discovered 5 more.
I felt super excited, amazed by the existence. The very existence of the system was kind of shock.
The TRAPPIST-1 planets are extremely close to one another. From a planet's surface, which looks like a bowling ball with 2 holes in it, you could easily see the other TRAPPIST-1 planets in the sky.
If you were standing on one of these planets, you'd actually see a lot of them sort of in the sky, whipping by on these very short orbital periods.
NASA's James Webb Telescope, launching in 2018, could teach us even more about the TRAPPIST-1 system. It'll be able to detect the chemical fingerprints of water, methane, and oxygen of potential atmospheres, key ingredients in assessing habitability.
It is an excellent, fantastic discovery.
Excellent, fantastic. The TRAPPIST-1 planets. And of course, we always look at the Twilight language. I haven't looked actually to see what Lauren Coleman says yet. This does appear to be the #1 trending video on YouTube, even as I come to you right now. Of course, it's NASA's Jack Parsons Laboratory, Jet Propulsion Laboratory. TRAPPIST-1. You know, like Trappist monks. World is ruled by signs and symbols, my friends. The Vietnamese woman suspected of helping to kill the North Korean leader's half-brother was a keen singer whose Facebook pages featured pouting portraits and pictures of parties.
The Vietnamese woman who is suspected of killing Kim Jong-nam at a Malaysian airport was an avid singer and may have been a participant on a Vietnamese version of American Idol. Tuan Thi Huang has a Facebook page filled with pouting portraits and pictures of parties. The page also features Huang wearing the LOL shirt similar to the one she was wearing at the airport. A woman bearing a close resemblance to Huang sang on the show in June of 2016, but was dismissed in the first round. Facial recognition software has matched Huang to the woman on the show, despite the fact that her name was given as Din Thi Quen. This is the last person you would expect to be an international assassin, but Huang is currently being held by Malaysian police.
There you go. That's your latest update on the crazy international ninja intrigue story. Vietnamese suspect in Kim murder is a party girl. Now, how many stories do we hear more and more and more? Whether it's murder in an airport or war hawks getting fired. Oh, well, we heard about it through these, biometric software and facial recognition technology and all the conversations we surveil and collect up. A man with 3 wives is accused of having plotted with them to kill a 14-year-old girl he sexually abused. 2 of the women allegedly dressed up as ninjas and attempted to murder the victim before she could testify against him in court. Kane Blackwing, age 47, was charged last Thursday with 3 counts of solicitation for aggravated murder, conspiracy to commit aggravated murder, and attempted aggravated murder. All the charges are in the first degree and are a result of him conspiring to murder a teenager who accused him of forcible sexual abuse back in 2014.
Utah man's ninja wives try to kill teen girl he abused. This is Utah polygamist and convicted sex offender Kane Blackwing. He's got 3 wives and is currently doing time for sexually abusing a 14-year-old girl in 2014. Turns out Blackwing runs his household like a ninja clan. Prior to his conviction, he allegedly ordered 2 of his wives to take out the victim, ninja style. And get this, he also makes them call him Lord. In September 2014, the women reportedly tried to assassinate Blackwing's victim at her home, just days before she was due to testify against Blackwing in court. But their attempts were thwarted by 2 men, one of them who was armed with, of all things, a samurai sword. The would-be shinobis tried to use a stun gun, but this failed, and the men held them at bay until the cops arrived. Raven Blackwing, age 22, and her 19-year-old accomplice were taken away by the cops. Raven's doing up to 15 years for the crime, while the other was sentenced to probation, which she has since completed. She can't be named because she's also reportedly a victim of Blackwing's sexual abuse. In 2015, he was charged with raping her.
Utah convicts' ninja wives tried to murder girl they abused. Hashtag polygamous ninjas. Yes. That's all Star Wars, wrestling, ninjas, video games and shit. This is apparently the world we live in now. The Blacks for Trump guy at the Florida rally is a former Yahweh Ben Yahweh cult member. Conservative Twitter was abuzz with the trending hashtag Blacks for Trump. Thousands of retweeted photos from Trump's rally last weekend in Lakeland, Florida, showing a small group standing directly behind him, enthusiastically waving Blacks for Trump signs. Blacks are for Trump and the left can't stand it, writes Lawless Pirate, with another pic of the sign-waving man wearing a shirt reading Trump and Republicans are not racist. So who is this new face of Trump's elusive black support? He's none other than Michael the Black Man, also known as Maurice Woodside or Michael Simonette. He's made waves in Miami in recent years with protests against the Democratic Party and rallies for the GOP. He's also a former member of the murderous Yahweh Ben Yahweh cult, which was led by the charismatic preacher Hulan Mitchell Jr., who was charged by the feds in 1990 with conspiracy and killings that included a gruesome beheading in the Everglades. Of course, this goes down in America's Wang. Michael, along with 15 other Yahweh followers, were charged for allegedly conspiring in 2 murders. His brother, who's also in the cult, told jurors that Michael had helped beat one man who was later killed and stuck a sharpened stick into another man's eyeball. But jurors found Michael and 6 other Yahweh followers innocent. They sent Mitchell away for 20 years in the federal pen. In the years that followed, he changed his last name to Simonet, made a career as a musician, started a radio station in Miami, and then reinvented himself as Michael the Black Man, an anti-gay, anti-liberal preacher with a golden instinct for getting on TV at GOP events. He planned events with Rick Santorum and got in cable news action for bashing Barry Soetoro. Gosh, I wonder if there are any intelligence connections to this group. Since 1997, he's been charged with Grand Theft Auto, video game reference again, carrying a weapon onto an airplane and threatening a police officer, but never convicted in any of those cases. Which is probably where you drill down and find the interesting connections. So why is he supporting Trump? Reached on his cell phone in Lakeland, Florida, he said he likes Trump's plan to lower taxes, but also offered a complicated answer tying Hillary Clinton to a range of racist activities. One reason is because Hillary's last name is Rodham, and their family members are Rothschilds, who enslaved 13,000 slaves as collateral. She's also on camera kissing the head of the Ku Klux Klan, saying, "That's my mentor." That's all on my website. That website's address is also prominently displayed on those signs waving behind Trump on TV. The URL leads to a site full of grainy videos accusing Clinton of associating with various racist organizations. Not the least of which, giving all kinds of uranium to people that we want to later say, oh, God, no. Did Trump know about Michael the Black Man's background before giving him prime seating behind the candidate? I don't want to talk to him about any of that. I just came there with my signs, Michael says. But he says Trump shouldn't worry about his past. Yahweh's the one who told me white men are your brothers. Before that, I hated all white people. I hated their guts and I wanted them dead. Michael says he believes black voters will embrace Trump, though most polls have shown him struggling for minority support. But then you also watch, again, those town hall meetings. Black ladies, Hispanic guys. That was the whole thing about watching the rallies. I mean, I can just look at it and go, there's way more people at that concert than this other concert. So the update on this story. Trump's Lakeland rally wasn't the first time that his campaign gave Michael prime seating. A reader sent New Times, this is where we're getting this from, Miami New Times, and of course they're coming at it with their own bias. But a lot of times the best thing to do is go as local as you can to these kind of events because you're going to have reporters tracking this kind of stuff for a long time. A reader sent New Times photos from Trump's September 17th rally at downtown Miami's James L. Knight Center. The photos show Michael at the front of the audience. They were at the Miami rally, too, with the same signs and T-shirts and escorted to the front. Now, much like everything else we see, and as we saw it for the previous 8 to 16 years, the guy at the front guy, has very little to do with what's actually going on. They're mostly being shepherded around. And we're already trying to move to the next story. Vandals cause extensive damage at Jewish cemetery in St. Louis. So go ahead, buddy. Go ahead for it, Blake.
In front of the cemetery, stop the hate. Dozens of headstones toppled here over the weekend. Police not yet calling it a hate crime, but it comes as the FBI is investigating dozens of bomb threats made to Jewish centers nationwide.
Headstones toppled at a Jewish cemetery near St. Louis. This morning, family members with loved ones buried here are taking the attack personally.
This is just awful. I cannot imagine such desecration
says Nancy
occurring
Goldstein
in a holy place like this.
I feel nervous. I walked through there and I just felt that this was just a senseless act, a faceless, cowardly, hateful act.
False flag.
And that's unnerving.
It comes amid a rise in anti-Semitic activity, with
just
the
right on
FBI
time.
investigating a string of bomb threats against Jewish community centers nationwide. Since the new year, authorities say 54 Jewish centers have been targeted in 27 states. 11 new threats called in Monday. This Jewish center in Birmingham, Alabama, forced to evacuate for the second time in a month. So far, no actual attacks have taken place, and no bombs have been found.
Oh, really? Gosh, what a surprise. Now, I don't want to cast aspersions. I have no proof or anything. These events are just suspiciously well timed. They get massive headlines. Jewish cemetery destroyed. And then 2 months later, we'll find it'll be some Jewish kid who did it. You know, like the black girl running the KKK Twitter account. These are false flag events. This is Troll America, you guys. We can't not look at every event without our troll vision glasses on to see what's really going on. And again, it's perfectly timed. Perfectly timed. No, we got a rise in anti-Semitic events. No, and now the president's talking about it too. The front man, the stalking horse. Again, don't fall for the divide and conquer. We don't support either sides. We're creating our own thing. There's our mission statement in a nutshell. You are listening to The Morning Monarchy for Thursday, February 23rd, 2017. I'm James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com. Thursdays are weird days. Things you learn. John Podesta's first job in Washington, D.C. was butchering hogs for an 18th century themed park adjacent to the CIA headquarters. For what it's worth, the CIA's compartmentalized daycare center, which also was adjacent, didn't open until 1989. This would have been about 15 years after Podesta's time as a hog butcher. In any case, he really took his hometown pride in that Carl Sandburg poem to heart. Podesta kept a photo of a hog he killed as a screensaver on his work computer, and his employees made him change it because they were too creeped out by it and looking at the animal's dead eyes during meetings. Now, you can get a lot of this from a Politico story from 2009. I even just saw a few minutes ago, Arrest Podesta is the trending hashtag they're working on. Yes, John Podesta's first job in D.C. was butchering hogs, right next to the CIA headquarters. We've talked about Kuru, and we've talked about cannibalism. This Politico article from 2009, John Podesta, a seasoned hand. You know, just a blue-collar Chicago family. And we talk about the massive success of Chicago recently, and it's long-running. So now we get establishment mouthpieces such as National Geographic. Cannibalism, the ultimate taboo, is surprisingly common. Now, do we need to remind you about the last normalization cover National Geographic done? Oh, that's right, because they also work on normalizing pedophiles. This is probably easily my most popular story in the last week on the tweets. Hashtag normalize cannibalism. Now, tie in with this, of course, the Angelina Jolie story. You know, the CFR's front person going around showing people how great it is to eat bugs. Now, again, I'm no proponent of factory farming. We just talked about that yesterday on our Food World Order edition. Just because I eat meat from time to time doesn't mean I take part in the nasty, massive system. You got to get it local. They are pushing to normalize a lot of these things. So Angelina Jolie is pushing for you to eat bugs. And again, she is the front person for the Council on Foreign Relations, much like George Clooney, much like other... Wow, those actors, they just seem to be so much smarter. They're being elevated. They're being used. I don't know if they're patsies, dupes, useful idiots, or if they think they're really going to climb the ladder. So this is a brand new story from National Geographic by Simon Worrall, published February 19th, 2017. Cannibalism, the ultimate taboo, is surprisingly common. It's a toad eat toad, spider eat spider, and yes, human eat human world. So this brand new article, guess what? It's backed up with a nearly 6-year-old video chatting with cannibals.
Sharing food with other villages, whether human meat or just pig meat like this, has always been an important part of strengthening alliances.
I've just been given a choice cut, and this is the first bit of meat that anyone's eating, so I feel really honoured. Defir. Oh, that's good. I feel like I've earned this. I've helped cut it up. I've joined in making a moo-moo, hot rocks all over the place. burnt my fingers, and now I'm reaping the reward. Look at the beautiful chunk of meat. This is really precious. I'm really honoured. And God, it tastes good.
Nothing goes to waste when they kill something as valuable as a pig. My hosts are keen for me to sample more than just the prime cuts.
Okay. all right, let's give it a go. This is a pig's eye. Do you eat the whole thing in one? Do you eat the whole thing? Bite? The whole thing. I've just been given the pig's eyeball, and I guess it would be rude not to. No. That's an eyeball. I'm eating an eyeball. I don't believe it. Okay, one more time. It's chewy, and every time you chew, a jet of fluid comes out. It's a little bit challenging, but it's good. Thank you. Defia. It's protein, and that's what counts out here.
It feels like a good time to ask more about their cannibalistic past.
Have you eaten human meat? Did it taste as good as pig?
I have eaten 2 humans. Sorry, I was missing the captions. One was a man, the other a woman.
So he's eaten one man and one woman.
One woman.
Is there any difference between the taste of a man and a woman?
They taste the same.
Did anyone ever eat a white man?
We never killed a native white man. There weren't any around.
Okay, so we've never seen a white man, so you didn't have the opportunity of eating a white man. That's fair enough.
Says the white man there who just ate an eyeball. Chatting with Cannibals. Uploaded to YouTube March 22nd, that's 322, if you're keeping score. Back in 2011, nearly 6 years old. I tried to quickly search, I'm not sure who the host of that is, it's just a clip. Expedition Week, Eating with Cannibals was the show. I mean, I would suspect it's going to be the similar guy that's writing this story, Simon Worrall, who mentions Hannibal Lecter in the opening sentence of this article, which is basically an interview with Bill Shutt, S-H-U-T-T, and his new book, Cannibalism, A Perfectly Natural History. These are your globalist, transhumanist powers that shouldn't be overlords. And they want you, again, you can see it in the divide and conquer memes they're rolling out for everybody. They want us to kill and eat each other. Mostly figuratively, but if it happens literally, they're okay with that too. From what we can tell, they like to practice it, or at least they like to act like it a lot. Whether that's Debbie Harry in all her multiple roles of acting like she's a cannibal, whether it's in the Tales from the Dark Side framing clips, or at the Marina Abramovich event with the No Doubt chick chopping up cakes of ladies and posing with it. You're listening to The Morning Monarchy. Of course you are. For Thursday, February 23rd, 2017, I'm James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com. A jury in Dallas has sentenced a neurosurgeon to life in prison after hearing about several cases where he maimed, paralyzed, or killed his patients.
This once prominent neurosurgeon will spend the rest of his life behind bars.
Confinement in the Institutional Division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for life.
The charge, intentionally maiming patients.
A medical license does not keep you from prosecution if you maim and kill people.
Emotions ran high outside court following the life sentence.
This will not bring my mother back, but it is some sense of justice
for all of the families, for all of the victims.
Caitlin Lenuff's mother, Kelly Martin, bled to death during back surgery performed by Dr. Christopher Dunch, who in TV commercials billed himself as the finest neurosurgeon in Dallas.
Our next best doctor, it's neurosurgeon Dr. Christopher Dunch.
Mary Efford says the doctor's botched surgery on her back has left her paralyzed.
I said, he will never touch me again.
For 2 weeks, Dunch sat stone-faced, listening to testimony from former patients who call him a fiend who performed unnecessary surgery just to make money.
Because of greed. Because he owed people a lot of money. He wanted to live the high life.
These former patients all told Inside Edition Dunch ruined their lives.
He's a monster.
Psychopath. Killer. Jacqueline Troy says she only has a whisper of a voice after Dunch paralyzed her vocal cords.
They didn't know if I would survive.
Jeff Cheney says Dunch removed a part of his spinal cord by mistake, leaving the right side of his body paralyzed.
I was horrified. I was speechless.
Lee Passmore says he's suffering from crippling nerve spasms after Dunch operated on his spine.
It feels like somebody has an ice pick planted squarely in my back.
Now there are tears of justice after these patients realize Dunch will never be allowed to operate again.
This is what I'm waiting 4.5 years for.
Now, I had to go to Inside Edition to get that story. Neurosurgeon sentenced to life in jail after botched surgery. Now, this is interesting. You guys, seriously? Oh, yeah, the cannibalism story's all totally real. John Podesta eats people, but this story's fake. Yeah, it's Sandy Hook crisis actors. Get fucking real. Watch the clip. Read the stuff. These are documented sources. Let's go off to the UK now. Wiltshire Chief Constable Mike Veal alleges Ted Heath was a pedophile. That's right. More and more and more and more proof that our elites, again, so-called elites and the powers that shouldn't be, like to abuse people. That's what they do. This is the former Prime Minister of England.
Despite the odd female fan, Edward Heath was long the subject of speculation about his sex life. But now, far worse. At least 4 separate police forces are investigating several allegations of offences involving children. The latest being Kent, who said tonight they're looking into a complaint of sexual assault from the early 60s in the east of the county, around where Heath was born. And the alleged victim has named him. But today's headlines have prompted those who worked for Heath to come to his defence.
I couldn't possibly see Ted Heath taking the risk of dealing with a rent boy, a self-confessed rent boy, or indeed a person who's supposed to have kept a brothel, making himself so vulnerable in that way. That wasn't Ted's way.
Yesterday, Wiltshire police went to his old house in Salisbury to appeal for anybody who knew of abuse by Heath to come forward. After the Independent Police Complaints Commission said they were inquiring whether the local police had dropped a prosecution after someone threatened to expose child sex offences by the former PM.
And we'd really like to hear from everybody that may have any information that supports our investigation.
And today's Mirror had a story from a man alleging that Heath raped him when he was only 12. The paper quoted a letter from the man saying Heath took him back to his London flat for sex.
He said that he only had the one bedroom and that if I was okay with that, I could share his bed.
But John Campbell, author of an acclaimed biography of Heath, is sceptical about all the reports.
I think there is no evidence of any gay activity at any stage in his life. And it is much more plausible that he simply repressed whatever he did feel, but I think he was a sexless, an asexual man. We always tend to think that everybody has to be driven by sex, but I think some people aren't, and I think Ted Heath was one of those. His life was very full of other things, and I don't think he had any time or interest for sex.
But now Jersey police have confirmed they're examining whether Heath abused boys from the notorious Haute de la Garenne children's home on the island, one of Jimmy Savile's haunts. An American reporter who tried to pursue that story initially had trouble getting a British visa.
I first heard about Ted Heath in Jersey from police officers who had investigated child abuse there. There was a pervasive yachting culture with abuse that would take place on the yachts.
Sir Edward Heath died almost exactly 10 years ago. His reputation tarnished more by his troubled public life than anything in his private life. But with police and the far-reaching Goddard inquiry now almost overwhelmed by allegations against senior figures, we may never know the truth about this most enigmatic Prime Minister.
That video published by Channel 4 News, August 4th, 2015. Edward Heath abuse claims, the investigation. So that's 2.5 years old. Now, this most recent update, wearechange.org, and potentially the largest bombshell in 2017, Sir Edward Heath, former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, now deceased, has reportedly been confirmed of being a pedophile by the Chief Constable of Wiltshire, Mike Veal. Yes, I missed the Veal initially. Veal, who has been in charge of Heath's inquiry, has stated that his vile crimes against children were alleged to have been covered up by the establishment. More than 30 victims have come forward, but the biographer, John Campbell, there's no evidence of any of this. There's a lot of evidence of a lot of this. And our growing hashtag pedophiles, the list grows. Fears mount over scale of Buddhist sect sexual abuse. This from February 18th via The Guardian. One of the UK's largest Buddhist orders has been forced to report allegations of sexual abuse after a former follower claimed he was coerced into sex with one of its elders. In a separate development, the group's founder has apologized for having relationships with its members, some of which he had previously acknowledged may have been against their will.
The special area that I've spent a lot of time looking at,
don't touch my special
of course,
area,
is gender imbalance of power and sexual abuse. And when it comes to that, perhaps our blind spot is not recognizing that all the factors that apply to all organizations apply to Buddhist communities as well. There really isn't any difference. The factors that are a recipe for sexual abuse and abuses of power on a gender basis are exactly the same. If you have a male dominance, if you have a devaluing of women and youth and children's experiences, if you have an idea that a leader's ability to accomplish the mission is more important than what's happening on a day-to-day basis in the community, if you have a belief in secrecy around, well, first of all, sexual issues, and second of all, sexual abuse issues, all those things in any community or organization are a powerful recipe for sexual abuse to take place, so they will. And Buddhist organizations are no exception if those things are present. So in a way, one of our blind spots is to recognize that in spite of holding tremendous wisdom, beautiful tools with which to develop ourselves and others and a community, we're still subject to the ordinary recipes for abuse.
That is lawyer and woman's trauma counselor and Buddhist Pam Rubin. You're listening to The Morning Monarchy for Thursday, February 23rd, 2017. You can't make this shit up. There was a storm through Southern California named Lucifer last week. Major Pacific storm Lucifer has been upgraded to Category 5 out of the 1 through 6 system here at the Southern California Weather Force, impacting your last Friday. Lucifer is pending a Category 6, the highest on our scale. Kanye West reportedly suffering from memory loss since his forced hospitalization. According to a longtime friend, Kanye West is, quote, slowly recovering his memory, end quote, since his forced hospitalization in November 2016, surrounding, of course, the thrilling conclusion of America's Next Top President. What truly happened to Kanye while he was taken away for 10 days? That coming from Vigilant Citizen. And all the other hashtag Holy Hexes stories you can find on the Twitter moments that we've been putting together and posting about an hour before these episodes. Now, I want to do something interesting right here. We've been firing up HAARP. We've been normalizing cannibalism and pedophilia. As, again, these are the memes of the day. I want to read 3 letters I've gotten recently. And I'm not going to say who they're from, and I apologize if you're mad that I read these, but I won't mention any of your names. No one will know who you are. But I think it's 3 interesting angles, and it's very holy hexes. First one. I love your show and listen regularly since you started doing it every morning last year. Heard about you from Corbett. Thank you truly for what you're doing. Very brave and very honest. Just being yourself, right? Please remember to be nice to your mother, too. You crack me up with your comments, but the woman does know her Bible, doesn't she? A true blessing to you and yours, James. As with my parents, they sound like they mean well, have good hearts, and are great people. They just have their eyes and ears closed too often, or don't want to face the incredulous evil that absolutely does exist in the world. I pray for you often, James, that you'll come back to the fold where you belong. Although I know you hated going to church, as did I, that doesn't mean we can deny what we've been taught either. Perhaps some of it was likely just unfounded bullshit, but which parts? All the more reason to find out for myself, to read and discover on my own. When I had my boys, I started to care so much more about so many more things. I did fall away from my childhood faith for a time, too, a few years back. Too many holes and questions, pieces not fitting in the narratives, or bad representations of Christianity that'll make you want to run to the opposite. But when I heard of and began researching the Nephilim, the pieces began coming together for me. And I came back full force, but in a different way. I decided it doesn't have to be the phony Christianity of yesterday. Truth has always been most important to me. That's letter number 1. Now, letter number 2, which pretty much kicked all of this off, I think really illustrates a lot of what we're seeing, and I bet you have similar things happening in your life. A media monarchy supporter had disappeared from all the social media things, so I messaged them through the one place they were still on. Ghosting, eh? I said. And they replied with this, quote, "Hey, James, suppose I am, but hopefully you don't take it personally, as I'm in effect ghosting the world at large. But since you gave enough of a damn to reach out, and that you're likely the first and likely only to do so, I'm more than happy to explain. I've not only deleted my pseudonym-related accounts, but also my personal Facebook online dating profiles, of which there were many, and essentially checked out from what little social circle I had in the area. I've also begun closing all my credit card accounts and taking other steps to withdraw from the system grid as much as possible. In short, James, I'm finally practicing what we in the alt have been hypocritically preaching for years. All this I've been threatening to do for a while, and as I'm finally taking these steps, I feel a burden being lifted. The insincere, half-hearted way I was going about life has gnawed at me for quite some time. In my early and mid-20s, I numbed it with booze and sex, then sobered up and distracted myself with travel and work. But at some point made a lame attempt at taking a stand in the form of a Twitter soapbox, which I'd originally intended as a platform for a writing career that never got off the ground, and that's where you came in. Although I still support you personally, as well as your underlying motivations for operating Media Monarchy, I can no longer justify the underlying tenets that fostered our ideological alliance over the past several months. Why? Well, to put it bluntly, I've consciously decided to stop caring about people. Since the November election, with everything that's transpired in the lead-up and aftermath, I've been forced to do some proverbial soul-searching as to the deep frustration and inner turmoil that welled up inside of me. At first, I believe the feelings were fairly recent, but after meditating on them, I realized they were rooted in more ephemeral and seemingly disconnected experiences accumulated over my life that over time clustered into sort of a complex in the psychological sense. Or maybe it's more appropriate to call it an anti-complex, since what I now understand this to be is the very real cognitive dissonance that I, as a white heterosexual male, have felt in being persuaded to act against my own self-interest in favor of the good of humanity or equality or what have you, quite literally since day one. What finally crystallized this for me was the acceleration and amplification of experiences that fueled this anti-complex. I started becoming consciously aware of it in 2014 when I was cornered by a couple of radical feminists at a meeting and harangued for my association with the so-called patriarchy. This was the first taste of a sort of changing of the guard. It was a canary in the coal mine that signaled to me what I now understand as the shift from issue-based politics to identity politics. Fast forward to November 2016, and you have the second major identity politic election, the first with Obama in 2008, although nobody realized it at the time. This one, the supposed white lash, wherein the sleeping giant that was white heterosexual male America finally said, enough. But enough of what? Well, that's in the eye of the beholder, and we'll see as to which beholder's vision ultimately wins out. But suffice it to say, it seems to me abundantly clear that there is no longer a place for me in the ideological left, and a very warm one for me on the right. Now, when I say left, I mean it in the cultural and philosophical sense of the word. I'm talking the ideals of liberalism, mainly liberty, equality, being the tenets our post-Enlightenment Western society was founded on. You're probably asking yourself, so what, you're saying you're against equality and liberty now? Not necessarily. Now, that's only actually half of that letter. And because I spent too much time talking about cannibalism and HAARP, I won't be able to read the rest of the thing. So maybe we'll save the rest of that for next week, but I think you kind of see where it was going, even if I don't finish it for you right here. Let's read the third letter so we can have a bit of a beginning, middle, and end to this. Thank you for giving me a way to keep closer tabs on current events without losing my mind. I'm a long-term, if possibly erratic listener. Like many people, I suppose, I came to you through Corbett and appreciate your attitude. I've checked out for long periods of time over the past couple of decades. Probably not the best thing to do, I realize. I admit ignorance about a lot of things, but then again, I believe that's an ability lots of people don't have and should have. The ideal path would involve becoming informed without swallowing too much bullshit. It's heartening to know that there are people out there in the world who have a similar take. I don't know many of them in real life, which has never bothered me much. I'm suspicious of all attempts to gather people together by their beliefs, and I'm not much of a joiner anyway. But the climate has definitely changed since America's Next Top President in 2016, and I feel more of a need for community somehow. I have that in my real-life friends to some extent, but I don't really know how to get these points across to them. I mostly think it's pointless anyway. So thanks again for satisfying a need I didn't realize I had until recently. That's reading 3 letters sent to Media Monarchy. They're all very similar, but they're all very different. I appreciate and apologize to them for sharing those. That's your Holy Hexes Morning Monarchy for February 23rd. We've got amazing music from Jens Lekman. He's from Gothenburg, Sweden. You may have heard of that place recently. And we're going to hear an amazing song called Evening Prayer, appropriately enough. And much like the bright, shining sun outside, it's kind of a deceptively sunny-sounding song. Let's look at this day in history, though. February 23rd, 1861, President-elect Abraham Lincoln arrived secretly in the District of Criminals after the thwarting of an alleged assassination plot in Baltimore, Maryland. What did we see in the front of the news today? Rexon sneaking over? What does it say when the powers that shouldn't be can't really go anywhere? They have to sneak around. And what does it say, of course, with the pedophile reputations? They only, as was noted by our British friends in the chat, they're only going to bring up the dead ones, because if they mention the people in power right now, there would be lynchings. And that would be us, the slaves, rising up and lynching the masters, just to clarify. February 23rd, 1903, Cuba leases Guantanamo Bay to the United States in perpetuity. Now remember, we're ideological enemies and would go to world war over things, but we'll totally sell you our prison for you to torture people a bunch on. February 23rd, 1917, first demonstrations in St. Petersburg, Russia, the beginning of the February Revolution. It's the Bolshevik Revolution. February 23rd, 1945, during the Battle of Iwo Jima, a group of United States Marines and a U.S. Navy hospital corpsman reached the top of Mount Suribachi on an island and are photographed raising the American flag in one of the greatest pieces of propaganda.
Finally tonight, in February of 1945, Associated Press photographer Joe Rosenthal snapped this iconic Pulitzer Prize-winning photo. But he didn't have time to get the names of the men in it. That was left to the Marines. Now it turns out they didn't get it quite right. Here's David Martin.
Well, here's not David Martin. We'll include this link from CBS News. This is actually from last year they uploaded. Marines admit man in iconic Iwo Jima photo was misidentified. And these are the kind of things that, again, lead to, oh, well, it's probably all staged. Of course it's staged. Massive propaganda moves don't just sort of happen. They never let a good crisis go to waste. So we'll include that video again, everything we say and play, all of it in there. Yeah, how do you get names wrong for a staged photo? February 23rd, 1954, the first mass inoculation of children against polio. But the Salk vaccine begins in Pittsburgh on this day in 54. 20 years later on this day, the Symbionese Liberation Army demands $4 million more to release kidnapped victim Patty Hearst. So we've been just talking about that recently. Her birthday was Monday, I believe. Heard our buddy Robert Phoenix doing her chart and talking about, again, the return of these types of psychological operations. 70s were nuts, man. Cults and kidnappings and blowing shit up in D.C. You bet your ass that's coming back again. There was going to be a new violent left renaissance. February 23rd, 1987, supernova 1987A is seen in the Large Magellanic Cloud. Magellanic. February 23rd, 2010, unknown criminals pour more than 2.5 million liters of diesel oil and other hydrocarbons into the river Lambro in northern Italy, sparking an environmental disaster. Unknown criminals. Generally the powers that shouldn't be. We've been online since 9/11/05, and as I've said, 10+ thousand articles, episodes, interviews, and more. Published to Media Monarchy a decade ago on this day. Republican presidential hopeful Rudy Giuliani met with firefighters and police officers in Spartanburg, using the forum to discuss 9/11. PBS piece on terrorist surveillance program. This just in, your email and conversation is monitored. Oh, you mean we knew that back in 2007? You mean CIA Snowden hadn't told us yet? Huh. McVeigh had high-level help. This coming from the Salt Lake Tribune. Oklahoma City bombing conspirator Terry Nichols says high-ranking FBI officials apparently was directing Timothy McVeigh in the plot to blow up a government building and might have changed the original target of the attack. McVeigh had high-level help. That coming from the conspiracy rag, the Salt Lake Tribune. Another bit of tinfoil. Again, where do you get tinfoil? It's all aluminum foil. From the Scotsman. Children's TV is linked to cancer, autism, dementia. It's long been blamed for creating a nation of couch potatoes, but a new report today claims that Britain's love affair with television is causing far more damage both physically and psychologically than previously thought. Those stories published to Media Monarchy this day in history, February 23rd, 2007. I love giving that background look at what's been going on. I love having documented these things. So as the agenda rolls forward and the stalking horse, Trojan horse puppets move in and out of position, we can follow the long con. Now we're going to talk about, on this soon-to-be published episode of New World Next Week, the CIA and the blind shake. Terrorists brought in, given visas, taught how to make bombs and blow things up. World Trade Center 93. The feds were intimately involved. There's tapes of the terrorists saying, oh, you guys are going to swap it out, right? And it's just going to be a fake bomb, and then you're going to arrest the guys when they push the button? Yeah, totally. Looking at some of the birthdays today, February 23rd. Born in 1850, Swiss businessman César Ritz. He founded the Ritz Hotel. That's where we get the term Ritz. Putting on the Ritz. Where Rockefellers walk with gloves on their mitts. It's also W.E.B. Du Bois' birthday. Victor Fleming. Paul Morrissey. He directed most of the Warhol films, born on this day in 1938. It's also Peter Fonda's birthday. You may have seen him recently in that terrible Coen Brothers Super Bowl commercial. You guys really? You guys need that money? Johnny Winter, celebrating a birthday today. He passed away in 2014. It's also Viktor Yushchenko's birthday. Ukrainian captain and politician, the third president of Ukraine. You might remember him being poisoned in the Orange Revolution. Watch out for American Spring coming soon. It's also Howard Jones' birthday, Chris Vrenna's birthday. Trent Reznor blocked me on Twitter. Try it. He'll do it in a heartbeat. S.E. Cupp, Aziz Ansari, Emily Blunt, Skylar Gray, and Dakota Fanning also celebrating birthdays today. Lots of youngins. Are there any musical folks that might make their way into our daily DJ set out of that? Probably not. But we do an hour of news in the morning, an hour of music in the afternoon, and it is all brought to you by you, my friends. I appreciate it. We made it. Holy Hexes, Thursday, February 23rd, 2017. I am James Evan Pilato of MediaMonarchy.com. Thanking you so much for listening. And again, we're going out with evening prayer from Jens Lekman. And I'm reminding you, as always, like Jello Biafra said, don't hate the media, become the media. Take care.
A 3D printer, and he prints out a model of the tumor that was surgically removed from his back this winter. And it's rugged gray plastic, it looks lunar. He puts the tumor in his breast pocket as we head out for a beer. It's been a long, hard year for a friend who's not sure if he's close enough to be allowed to care, or just be there to include you in his evening prayer. How I pray that I could stop the pain when the pain needed more than ibuprofen. I pray that I could take away your worries when they ran deeper than the West Pacific Ocean. He puts the tumor on our table, says, so this is what caused all my fears. It's been a long, hard year for a friend who's not sure if he's close enough to be allowed to care, or just be there to include you in his evening prayer. Last orders, the waitress slides down from her bar stool, looks at the tumor, says, what is this? It looks kinda cool. Okay, despite what he's been through, but he sees I'm made uneasy by the model he's done. He says it's helped me a lot to have a friend like you. When I saw you worry, I knew I had to be strong. He gives a tumor to the waitresses, give my friend here a beer. It's been a long, hard year. I just wasn't sure if we were close enough, but I want you to know how much I care that you were in my evening prayer. I want you to know that you were in my prayer. I want you to know that you were in my prayer.
You're listening to Media Monarchy with James Evan Pilato. Since 2005, Media Monarchy has covered the real news about politics, health, technology and the occult, all remixed with music and media that matters. Go to MediaMonarchy.com/support and become a monthly subscriber so you can help keep independent, non-commercial, alternative media going and growing. Thanks.